Hello everyone, I hope you're doing great. Comfort at your home, and for today, our discussion is about culture and moral behavior. By the way, I am Leia Imanalo, the presenter of this discussion. So let's proceed. So, what is culture? Culture is defined as the complex whole which includes the knowledge, beliefs, arts, moral, and law, customs, and any other capabilities and habits. It's acquired by man as a member of society by Brooke 2008. And the totality of learned, socially transmitted by customs, knowledge, material objects, and behavior by Schaffer 2013. The distinctive way of life of a people, whatever that might be. And for the function of culture is for the functions of culture is one is culture provides identity to the people in the society, and the second is culture mirrors the laws of the land, and the three culture unifies people in many ways that only those who belong in that society understands. The four is culture influences our concept of morality. On these functions of culture is about tradition and beliefs into their society. Let's talk about the cultural relativism. In cultural relativism is the view that moral beliefs and practices vary with and depend on the human needs and social conditions of particularly cultures by Holmes 2007. This definition is entirely based on the premise that there can be no universal oaths and that there is no culture that can be the basis of all that is good and true. It is important to recognize the vitality of cultural differences since ethical judgments are relatively to culture context by Vela and McKinnon 2013. In cultural relativism, then should be understood as a celebration and appreciation of culture diversity, Kellen Berger 2011. And about to the ethical relativism. In ethical relativism or moral relativism, it maintains that different societies and ages hold distinct systems of morality and that there are no objective and transcultural criteria for judging between these systems by Herder as cited in Sika 2011. And also about the ethical or moral values and beliefs are relative to the various individuals or societies that hold them. There is no objective right and wrong. And they have two forms of ethical relativism. The first is personal or individual ethical relativism. It's about ethical judgments and beliefs are the expressions of the moral outlook and attitudes of individual persons. And there is no objective standard of right and wrong in as much as the individual person is the basis of the moral judgment. And any person has no right to say that others are correct or incorrect. An example of the personal or individual ethical relativism is suicide or genericide, that's abandonment to death or killing of the elderly. And during feminists are the other extremely difficult situations that Inuit or the indigenous people of the America will leave their elderly on the ice to die. And the individual relativists would say that no one, especially the outsider of this culture, has the right to say that the Inuit are wrong because the immorality of such action depends entirely on the individual Inuit beliefs. And the second is social or cultural ethical relativism. It's about ethical values and beliefs vary from society to society. The basis of moral judgment lies in this social or cultural view. No society's view is better than any other in a transcultural scene, and no society has the right to say that particularly culture of a certain society is wrong. They have three possible reasons that support ethical relativism. First is diversity of moral values, the presence of disagreement on many ethical issues or even on basic moral values. Example, like telling the truth. And for the second is moral uncertainty. There is a great difficulty in knowing what is the moral right thing to do or believe. Example, determine the right of moral action to pursue, like that. And for the three is situation difference. Situations and life of different people vary so much. And let's talk about the strengths and weakness. So let's talk about the strengths. The first is what is considered morally right and wrong should be judged on cultural context. And for the second is cultural relativism is an answer to cultural annihilation. And the third is cultural relativism promotes multiculturalism. And for the weaknesses, the first is cultural relativism might fall prey into the idea that universal standards do not exist. And for the second is if universal standards do not exist, so does morality. And for the third is cultural relativism gives birth to ethical relativism, which bears away from the idea that there are objective moral standards. For the cultural tolerance, cultural relativism shows cultural tolerance in order to preserve the distinctiveness of people regardless of whichever content they've come from. So, cultural tolerance is highly encouraged.
It will not mean that we are to compromise human life and all the universal rights associated it. A particular culture cannot invoke cultural relativism at all times.
For cultural sensitivity is the key cultural tolerance and being aware that cultural differences and similarities between people exist without assigning them a value, positive or negative, better or worse, right or wrong, by Davos said in 2014. They have a tips for improving your cultural sensitivity. The first is exposure. The truth is no matter where you live, you are exposed to other cultures. Look for local festivals and events focused on the other cultures. And for the second is education. Understanding the cultural practices of others can make or break an interaction. We show respect by observing those practices, so knowing what not to do is crucial. Learn about other cultures by reading online magazines, journals, or blogs. And the third is curiosity. Being culturally curious doesn't mean you have to sell everything and become a backpacker. You can start small by going to a local restaurant to try new food and ask questions like, is this how this dish is traditionally served in your country? And the fourth is self-awareness. Knowing more about your own culture is the most important part of developing cultural sensitivity. You can't expect to truly understand someone else until you know yourself. Start by answering a simple questions. What makes you and your culture unique? And that's all for today. I hope you learn and like it my presentation. Thank you. God bless and keep safe every day. Have a nice day.